Alright guys, so welcome back here to the part 2. And in the previous video we only set up the structures and created the data table, and in this video we're going to actually create the NPC and we're going to attach him the component. So first, before we work with the NPC, let's just create a test component that we can use to interact with our character. So what I would like to do here is I'm going to create here an actor called BPC base dialog trigger. All right, that's going to be an actor, right? And we're going to add here a cube as a reference, and we're going to add a sphere. Perfect. Sphere collision. Now the collision is just so we can actually interact with the character itself. So we can actually make something like sphere radius like that. We can also do like hidden in-game false for now, and we can add the NPC here somewhere. So the idea is that we come here and we can press E or something, and then we can interact with the actor, right? All right, so to do this, let me just double check what's the best way. The best approach here will be, we can do this in many ways, but to be honest with you, we can create a component, then we can handle this on the component itself. I think that's the safest way, right? So what we can do here is that before actually we do that, let's just set up the NPC. So here we're gonna add a new variable, and this is gonna be called NPC dialog. Yeah, that's it. This is gonna be a data table row handle as well. Make sure it's public, and you expose that on spawn, right? Now here is very simple. We just need to make sure that we use the main dialog. Always leave that option empty. Now here we can actually, on the game, on the map here, we can just ask for the master sword, right? Perfect, which is really cool. Now that we have that stuff set up for us, we need to find a way to interact with this, right? And the way that I'm thinking to do here is that when the player gets in range and then he press a button or something, we can actually make him interact with this dialogue system. So the easiest ways to do this is, I'm trying to think a little bit of I'm just going to create a folder called blueprints, by the way, and move this there, and move this object right here. The way that I'm thinking this is that I want to attach something on my player, and then every time I am in range of this, I can press interaction, and then that if I am in range, it works. If I'm not in range, then it doesn't work, right? So something simpler. So let's go back here to blueprint actor components. Let's call this BPC dialog interaction. And what we're gonna do here is that we are gonna close all this stuff. We're gonna create here a couple of events. The first one is custom called API interact. Sorry, actually API NPC in range, and then we're just gonna call here NPC out of range. API NPC out of range. Perfect. Now if you do, I'm gonna actually make this replicated, because I know that probably some of you may want to do this online. So I'm just gonna make sure into a server, and then we call this into multicast, right? And this is one of the things that I'm not a fan about in Unreal Engine. It's just that the multicast, the replication is very messy. So sometimes you have to keep calling things on client and then calls on the server. So it's always, I'm not a fan of replication. But anyway, this is gonna be fine. So we're gonna put it here. So we got NPC range. This runs on the client. runs on server, and then everything runs right here. Perfect. Now we do need to know the actor that we're interacting with. So this, it's gonna be basically the interaction actor, and we're gonna add this here. Make sure it's an object reference. Let's set this actor here, and let's pass it by reference here, here. Make sure this is expose and spawn, and I think we need to replicate this, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, by the way, but I think we can keep it like that for now. Perfect. So this is when it's in range. Now, out of sight, the range is the same thing. So it's going to be run on the client. And then we're going to copy and paste this multiple times. Then when I'm working with replication, I always like to do dash server. And then I put here range dash multicast. So I know exactly like what they are. So here I can do server, and here I can do multicast. Can replicate that here and that. Fine. Now we can just copy the name. And this is the boring part. I really hate this part. I really don't enjoy creating this replication stuff. But anyways, it's what we have to do to make this work, right? So anyway, now when the character is in range, right? And then we can do here when the character, oh no, that's the other way around, sorry. Let me just paste it here, is not in range. And as usual, just to make things simpler for the future, I like to add those kind of adding actions in green, removing actions in red, so we know exactly how we are behaving with this. Now we have this thing done, right? We just need to basically do something simpler. We need to delete everything here on the component, but on the sphere, which is going to be the trigger, right? When the player overlaps and when the player ends the overlaps. Now what we got to do is that get component component by class. Okay, the class of the component is going to be the actor or whatever, so it's going to be the BPC, yeah, same as this one, right? So when the actor, right? And we are just going to do a print here for now to make sure that we have a valid component. Now probably this is not going to work because we do need to attach our component to the character. As you can see, is not working. But I'm pretty sure that the interaction with the character itself, it's working. Yeah, which is fine. That's all we need. Nice. Now we're going to go back to word settings and let's mess around with our palm, with the main palm, right? So the palm, what we got to do is just add the BPC dialog interaction. And that's pretty much everything we gotta do. Because look at that, it's already working. Because we're getting on the class. We're just basically telling Unreal, look, on this actor, do you have any NPC dialogue? And then if it does, and then we can actually do some things here. On this case, we can call the API NPC in range. And which one's the NPC? It's just self, right? Because we're just passing a reference to the same class here. And this is already doing things on the client and whatever, so we don't have to worry about that. And now the same thing, API remove, out of range, right? Now we just need to pass a couple of other things here. Now on the NPC, right, we ideally, well, this is actually up to you, the player, how you want to handle it. Sorry, to you, the designer, how you want to handle this. I can actually create here input and load input, but your game may be different. So let's just create here event. So in this case, we're just gonna make it super simple. Keyboard E. So every time I press E for interaction, I have E here somewhere. Where is E? D here. Perfect. when I press, if I have something there, I want to display now the hidden actor. Perfect. Now if I go back, get out, nice. This is all we need to work out. And then what I recommend you do is valid. So if it's valid, then we can create the open logic on the next step. So here, when the player press E, we open the widget. By the way, guys, so one thing that's is worth mentioning, if you're working with your own current input system, you will have to change this to user input system, right? But all you gotta do is that if you're on the character, right? And for example, here we load the input systems based on this. So instead of, let's say, jumping, you can just get that, and we can call the API, whatever the event we're gonna create, and then we can use that. But right now, you don't need to worry about this. So let's just keep it simple, all right? Now, thank you very much for watching. On the next episode, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna create the UI that will show up this stuff, and then we can interact with this. Thank you very much for watching, guys. See you in the next one.